There is a moment, usually late in the day, when the body is no longer asking for food, but for relief. You finish work, or maybe you finish pretending to be finished. The laptop is closed, but your mind is still moving. The house is quieter now. The pressure of the day starts to settle into your body, and that is when the search begins. Not always for a meal, often for something faster, something crunchy sweet, salty easy, something that changes your state without asking much from you. This is where stress eating becomes confusing, because it rarely feels dramatic. It feels ordinary. A few bites while standing in the kitchen, a snack on the couch that was not part of any plan, a reward after a difficult afternoon, a small habit that slowly starts carrying more emotional weight than it should. And then the usual advice appears. Be stricter. Cut the snacks. Remove the sugar. Track everything. Use more discipline. But strict dieting often fails. For the same reason stress eating begins in the first place. It adds more tension to a system that is already overloaded. When the day feels demanding, the brain starts to favor what is immediate, familiar, and rewarding. It does not do this because you are broken. It does it because the nervous system is trying to regulate itself with whatever tools are available. Food simply becomes one of the fastest tools in reach. That is why a quieter, more structured approach works better. Instead of trying to control every urge with force, a Japanese-inspired habit system looks at rhythm, environment, timing, and repetition. It asks a different question. Not how do I become stricter, but how do I make stress eating less necessary? That is a more useful starting point. The Kaizen principle is especially helpful here. Small change, repeated calmly. No heroic reset. No all-or-nothing mindset. Just steady adjustments that make better behavior easier to access and harder to abandon. So, in this video, we are going to look at 5 Japanese-inspired habits that help reduce stress eating without strict dieting. Not through punishment, not through rigid food rules, but through better design. The first habit is to create a pause before comfort eating begins. Stress eating tends to happen quickly. The body moves before the mind fully joins in. You open the cabinet, grab something, and only halfway through do you realize you were not truly hungry. That speed matters, because the faster the behavior, the less space there is for awareness. One of the simplest ways to interrupt that pattern is to add a tiny ritual before any unplanned snack. Put the food on a plate. Pour a glass of water first. Sit down before the first bite. Take one slow breath. This is not a test of self-control. It is a way of slowing the loop. In behavioral psychology, friction changes action. Even a small interruption can reduce automatic behavior because it forces the brain to shift from impulse to awareness. That is often enough to weaken the reflex, not to eliminate the urge, but to make it less mechanical. This is also why Japanese daily routines often feel effective in a practical way. There is respect for sequence, one step before the next, a transition before action. That structure creates steadiness. Tomorrow, do not promise yourself that you will never snack from stress again. Just create a 10-second pause before the snack. That is much smaller and much more realistic. The second habit is to make meals feel complete, not rushed. A lot of stress eating starts earlier than people think. It starts when breakfast is skipped, lunch is distracted, and the body is expected to stay stable on caffeine speed and convenience. Then by late afternoon or evening, something feels off. You may call it a craving. Sometimes it is simply accumulated instability. When meals are too light, too fast, or barely noticed, the brain does not register enough closure. You may have eaten, but the body does not feel settled. Then snacks start doing the job meals were supposed to do. This matters because satiety is not just about calories. It is also about pacing, attention, texture, and rhythm. Eating while scrolling, standing, driving, or rushing into the next task weakens the sense of completion. The stomach may be full, but the experience still feels unfinished. That unfinished feeling is powerful. It keeps the brain open to more reward, more stimulation, more input. And when stress is already present, the desire for something extra becomes even stronger. So instead of making food rules stricter, make one daily meal more anchored. Sit for it. Put it on a plate or in a bowl. Include enough protein or fiber to avoid the quick crash that leads to reactive snacking later. Give the meal a beginning and an end. Even 10 intentional minutes can change the signal your body receives. This is discipline in a quieter form, not restriction, completion. The third habit is to lower evening stimulation before cravings take over. For many people, stress eating is not just linked to hunger, it is linked to overload. The lights stay bright, screens stay close, messages keep arriving. Work thoughts remain active long after work is done. Then food becomes the easiest way to mark a shift that never happened naturally. The nervous system has a timing problem. Cortisol and alertness are useful during the day, but when stimulation stays high into the evening, the brain continues acting as if it is still on duty. In that state, self-regulation gets weaker. The body wants soothing, and it wants it fast. This is why evening cravings often feel more emotional than physical. A helpful response is to build a short decompression sequence before your usual craving window begins. Not after, before. If snacking usually happens around 9 p.m., your calming ritual should start at 8:30. Dim one light. Make tea. Wash your face. Stretch for 2 minutes. Put your phone on a shelf instead of in your hand. Write down the one unfinished thought that keeps circling. These actions seem small, but they serve an important function. They tell the body that the environment is changing. And when the environment changes first, the behavior often follows. The fourth habit is to reduce decision fatigue around food. Stress eating gets stronger when every eating decision is left to the weakest part of the day. By evening, mental energy is lower. Impulse control is softer. Convenience becomes more persuasive. If the only plan is to be good later usually loses. This is where simple structure helps. Prepare one reliable evening option that feels comforting, but not chaotic. Maybe it is tea and fruit. Maybe yogurt with cinnamon. Maybe a small bowl of soup. Maybe a simple plate you can repeat without thinking. The goal is not dietary perfection. The goal is to remove the exhausting negotiation that happens when you are tired, stressed, and standing in front of too many choices. Decision fatigue is not dramatic, but it is one of the quiet forces behind inconsistent eating. The brain gets worn down by repeated self-management. When that happens, easy choices win. So build the easy choice in advance. The fifth habit is to shape the environment so calm behavior becomes more likely. A lot of people speak about discipline as if it lives entirely inside personality. But behavior is shaped heavily by what is visible, accessible, and immediate. If highly rewarding snack foods are always in sight, if the kitchen stays open-ended late into the night, if the couch screen and snack pattern are linked every evening, then the environment is rehearsing the habit for you. A Japanese-inspired lifestyle design approach often values simplicity because simplicity reduces noise. Less visual clutter, less excess, less friction around the habits that matter. Apply that idea practically. Put trigger foods out of direct view. Do not eat from packages. Clear the kitchen counter after dinner so the eating phase feels finished. Keep calming alternatives visible. A teacup, a notebook, a water glass, a book already placed where your hand can reach it. Small cues matter because tired brains follow cues more than ideals. And if stress eating still happens, sometimes do not turn one moment into a verdict about yourself. That part matters more than many people realize. Change rarely fails because of one snack. It fails because one snack becomes a story. I ruined it. I have no discipline. I always go back to this. Once that story takes over, the next decision gets worse. A calmer approach is more useful. Look at the moment with honesty. Were you underfed, overstimulated, lonely? Still working mentally? Did you skip the pause, the meal structure, the evening transition? That is not self-judgment. That is data. And data helps you redesign the system. That is the deeper lesson behind these habits. Stress eating is not solved by trying to become harsh with yourself. It changes when your days become more stable, your meals more complete, your evenings less stimulating, your choices less exhausting, and your environment less reactive. Small actions do not look impressive at first. A plated snack, a quieter light, a more settled lunch, a prepared evening option, a cleared counter. But this is how real discipline grows, quietly, repeatedly, without drama, because consistency does not come from forcing yourself to feel motivated every day. It comes from building a life that asks less of willpower and gives more support to steadiness. And when that happens, food stops feeling like the only way to recover from your own day.